Enrollment report.
Yes, so this is our first enrollment report that we're providing the board regarding the number of students that we have in the school district, and we have our Mark Bonet here to discuss that. If you recall, we provided our CBEDS information in October that was submitted, and this is to give a comparison of that. Or we can discuss that as a comparison as well. Mr. Bonet.
I'm going to need just
Tech time.
tech time.
Tech time.
What? Yeah. Superintendent Linda, why he's in tech time, how close is the current enrollment to what we've budgeted?
Oh, we're very close to what we budgeted. I think we're off by 2, Mr. Bonet? Is that by 2 students? Is that?
All right. That's my only question.
I think.
Well, the question really is with regard to our ADA.
Right.
And our P2 ADA won't come in until April 15th. But our enrollment is down from last year.
Right.
And now that I
Well,
have it up on my screen here, but
yeah, it's going to depend on the grade level, because we're actually 30, it'd be about 28 to 30 students. We have to, just to get back to your point, Trustee Simon, we have to budget on some level programmatically. We do budget based on enrollment and ADA, obviously, but we also have to take into consideration our program. And oftentimes, if, for example, when you look at the report, you see a certain grade level doesn't have a cohort of 60 in it, we would still have to offer that class, like grade 3, grade 2 at 20 to 1, kindergarten at 20 to 1. We wouldn't change that if the number was down. So we would still have to budget for that, is my point.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think that the point I'm getting to is that we have dropped the last few years, and I think the drop, and it's gone up and down a little, but we're not at the sort of, particularly at the elementary school, we had a pretty steady 540 students for a number of years, and we're not maintaining that. My concern is that it seems to me that when we cut the programs that are seen as not core academic, like music, like
Their correlation.
after school, like sports, whenever we've cut those for budgetary reasons, the result has been we lose ADA and we lose the money anyway. So I'm very concerned, particularly without the test score.
right.
The year before, we had a bump up in test scores. We had increased ADA. People, I think the bottom line is we're in competition with other charter schools.
That's real.
And the other charter schools are not saying, we have ADA, they're saying, we have programs.
Come on.
And we have parents like the one who came tonight who said, I came for the music program, where's the music?
Right.
Well, she's just as likely to hear from the other surrounding charters around us who have music, who have the programs, and ADA will go down some more. So I'm just concerned that if it's at all possible, if we can add some of the program that parents look to, parents like John and myself, when we make our school decisions, and, you know, nieces and nephews like like Melody, you know, we're all,
Be right with you.
and 5 years from now, Joy.
I got cousins in the district.
All right. and-
So let me just make one comment about, I get your point, you know, about the need to have, you know, a quality, exceptional school and programs in it each and every day for consistency, for cohort consistency. There is one point that you made that I do want to just do a little bit of clarification around. This is our second year of being a K-8. And so this will be a really great comparison year for us. I do think that you're right, that growth has, we fluctuate from year to year, and we can see, you know, we can see trends, but I don't know if we have a K-8 trend yet. So I don't know where the five over 500 has been consistent
The chart
in a
that-
K-6.
The chart that we're about to see
K-5
makes it
school.
very clear.
So,
Yeah.
well,
So-
in that regard, I get your point. I'm just, my only point is we're now at a K-8 and a 9-12.
So I don't think that's really relevant, quite frankly. I think that the fact is we've had K-12 arts, science for many years. And what we marketed to the community and what we're marketing to ECCL is that we work with the whole child, K-12, and we had consistent
Yeah,
programming.
yeah.
K-12. And so when we take away a piece of that, then it does begin to differentiate them. And I think, it's a concern of mine.
And I agree, and I think that art and music are really important. I just think that there's other variables that make this shift different in terms of our enrollment. When you go from a 7-12 high school versus a K-6 or K-5 elementary school, and then you loop, you add one grade from year to year, and now we're consistent with a lower elementary and upper elementary, which is actually our second year of a K-8 school. We might expect some regression, and we talked about this a couple of years ago in terms of our enrollment. We knew that this sort of transition, not to mention the fact that we're at a temporary high school facility. Program is absolutely important. The arts program, the music program, they need to continue to grow, and we need to continue to grow them K-12. But when we look at this report, we have to look at it within the context of multiple variables that are happening right now, sort of simultaneously, that are impacting these numbers. That's my only point.
So I'm just looking at the
Sure.
K-8 school, which last year lost 23 students between last year and this year. So we didn't change that it was K-8 last year, it's K-8 this year, and we had what I view as a big drop. So I'm just concerned that we look at
Sure.
that critically, and I'm concerned that we look at, is there anything we need to do in the last 3 months of this year to get, so that next year we're moving back towards enrollment of 750? Because ultimately, I think program equals students, and if we don't have the enrollment, we
Yeah.
go into the death spiral of always having fewer and fewer students
That'll be
each
a
year
great-
because we're cutting programs.
That'll be a great conversation for our recruitment presentation that we give in January, and to talk about how we're going to, how our programs are going to be strengthened.
Please, Mr.
Okay.
Bonet.
Mr. Bonet.
Excuse me. You had a district enrollment report that shows the interdistrict transfers by grade level. So in the K-8 area, we had 219 interdistrict transfers that came in, which represented 43% of our K-8 enrollment for this year. The high school level, we had 144 kids on interdistrict transfer, which represented 67%. Overall, our enrollment did go down from last year to this year by 32 students. But as you look at this chart, with the fluctuations that we've had going back to 2008-9, in 8-9 we lost 32 students. In 11-12 we lost 58 students. And I think we had some of those programs in place that you were speaking of, Mr. Simon. It's a matter of the economy and the way
Multiple variables.
I'm sorry, what?
I would just say there's multiple variables.
Yeah, there's a multitude of things that change enrollment in small urban districts. And we went up 38 students from 11-12 to 12-13. But it is concerning that we lost 32 students going into this year. Because we had projected, I want to say last year, that we would be at 775, somewhere around that area, that we were going to grow. And next year we're projecting we're going to grow also, but it's minimal. I don't think we'll see growth until our new school is built, and you build it and they will come. That's my personal feeling. Anyway,
Well, we got here.
the chart shows we lost 32 students. Currently, we have 723 students enrolled, 508 at the elementary site, 215 at the high school site. Our class size average is just below 18 or just above 17 students per FTE.
Okay.
And you can see back in 2007-8 through about 10-11, our class size average per FTE was down in the 14 students per FTE, which truly is unsustainable for a district to have a class size that low. Then over the last 10 years, we had an 8% decline in students, and over the last 10 years, we had about an 18% decline in our FTEs. And again, that goes back to the sustainability of having really low class sizes. That's the enrollment report. If there are any questions, I'd
Questions? Sure.
try to answer them.
Come on down.
Do you know the actual retention rate? So say, I know we're down 32 kids, but we could have lost 40 families and gained 8. I'm just wondering if we know how many families left the district versus how many started with the district this year, to know the retention rate.
I don't have that information. We can pull it, and we can pull it by individual student because of the student identification numbers. So we could match them up, last year's numbers with this year's numbers, to see who stayed and who's gone by grade level.
Does anyone in the district reach out to families who have left to ask why they didn't return?
I'm not aware of that fact, no.
And without a district enrollment director, does the staff have the capacity to do that work? As a personal note, this is what I do at the gym. I am the enrollment director, so I'm studying these kind of things all the time. So these are things that I do, so I'm just curious if it's being done. but it is not a small piece of work, so.
No, we're not. It's not a small piece of work, and we do have, when students exit from the school, we can pull that, as Mr. Bonet said, because we know exactly why students leave, whether they leave because of parents' work, moving out of the area, or different reasons like that. Program satisfaction, and that's done as part of the exiting process. Ms. Allen, you want to?
I think so. There were two questions you kind of raised, and what you can do is we can pull what you call a gain and loss report. So a gain and loss report states within that year how many students have we gained and how many students have we lost. So while, like for example, at the high school, we may have lost 4 students, but we'll gain 3 within that same time period. So we can do that. The reasons why, usually the parents should, on the withdrawal form, they should state why their children are leaving. At the high school in particular, there have been, in the past few months, 1, 2, 3, there have been about 4 of them who have left because they moved. So we have one that's in San Leandro, 2 that went to Antioch. I mean, it's too far, and some of them we tried to think of ways of having them still commute, but it was just too much for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that issue is kind of out of our control. I mean, if families decide to move, they decide to move. There's nothing we can really do about it. But the other ones that are leaving for program issues
What's
or
in our control?
a bullying issue, or they didn't feel like they were heard by their teacher with concerns that they've had. Those are all within our control to help alleviate and help gain the trust back from those families and keep them in the district.
Yeah, so I think another question that you asked was in terms of families that we retain or students that we retain. And yes, so I think we need to do a study on that. And also, even when we look at program, we need to see, can we match it? So we have actually several students who attend Oakland Tech. That's their home school, so they live in Oakland, they don't live in Emeryville, and it's a big difference of going to an Oakland Tech versus Emory Secondary.
Yes.
So, and so, yes, program is one, but the social life is different. We have one who commuted for a while, and so it's funny because he still attends our games. I just saw him Saturday. He attends our homecoming dances, etc., but he lived in Hayward, and for a while he did commute, but he decided he wanted the large high school experience. So that's very different. That's something that we can't offer here. Another example of students that we lose, that I would say students who attend in terms of charter schools, one is Oakland Military School. Without me even asking, I already know why they attend Oakland Military School. It's the structure. And for the most part, either the child has identified that they need a rigid structure, or the parent has identified that. And so, which is very different in terms of what we want to or can't offer. So I think there's while we do study the concerns about why students leave, we identify the ones that we can control reasonably. So there's big difference in trying to convince, we talk about the small schools, we talk about how they get individualized attention, and sometimes the children come back. They do. But it's very hard when their parent has experienced a large school, social high school life, and their parents talk about their glory days and what they've done, and we are trying to compete with that. So
I guess where I'm coming from is that if those kind of studies are done over, a couple of years, you'll start to see a pattern, and you'll be able to step in before they decide to leave rather than trying to get them to come back, because that's harder. They've already decided to leave and go somewhere else. They've made that decision, and having them change their mind is going to be really difficult. But if we can find a pattern,
That's a great
and try to intervene sooner, I think that's what's going to be best for not only for those individual kids, but us as a district. It's also going to strengthen what we're offering and how we're offering. So I am very cognizant of the capacity issue in this district, and would volunteer to help with those studies if they wanted to happen.
Great.
Like I said, I do it all day, every day. So would be more than happy to come in and help out with that if it happens. But
Great.
like I said, I understand the capacity issue here.
yeah, so two other areas that you addressed. The secretaries call every year to identify if children are coming back. At the high school, the kids will actually tell you. So you do have time to intervene. And sometimes once they've made up their mind, they've made up their mind. But I will state that Mr. Shavrin, Mr. Patterson, I've done it. There's several of us several people at the high school level that will try to intervene and ask a lot of questions of the child to identify the real reason they're leaving and see if what can we do to help support you at the school. So that definitely happens, and it happens all the time. And the secretaries, they do call.
That's great.
Well, I would, based on what you just said, my suggestion to staff is when you come with the enrollment updates and you have this big of a drop, come with some type of reasoning why we have a drop. You know, whether based on these examples that you just gave to us, because apparently, I don't know if that's this year, those examples, or in previous years, but for me, it would be good for me to know this year why we have a 32 student decline, you know, and those reasons why. So now if it was a small, you know, drop, 10 students, I probably wouldn't even ask for it. But with 32, there should be an explanation of why we have this, well, yeah, why we have this decline.
Yeah, I mean, with those few students, it is, and that something we can elicit your help with, is just, it comes through the withdrawal forms, and many times we know exactly why. I can look at a name and tell you why. It's just a matter of how can we place it on paper so it's something that you all can read easily.
Because, I mean, and Ms. Annie-Cree, I'm going to put you out there. I mean, you know, we've been through these enrollments enough time to know that when the board see a drop like this, you know we're going to have, there's going to be some concerns. So, knowing us as you do, you know, especially me, I'm going to ask why. So, when staff comes with this large decline, it should be on your mind. When I give this report, I'm going to have to give a reason why. Okay?
Yeah, and I think this report will really be helpful in taking a look at that if we go from year to year.
But the numbers don't tell me why.
But no, they don't tell you why, but it will help us to pinpoint like grade specifics. For example, from the 4th to 5th grade, you know, if we lose 8 students, what happened there with those 8 students? And so we go back, we do that forensics and look at why.
I mean, as far as that chart is concerned, it just tells you what the difference is year to year, but it doesn't tell you if, okay, there's a difference of 4 kids, whether you gained 8 and you lost 12, or, you know, like, that's the information that's really important to look at, because if we're gaining, you know, 20 kids every year, but we're losing 40, that's something that, you know, like, why are those 40 leaving versus, hey, we're gaining 20, that means we have the potential for some real growth here. But I think that's the numbers, at least for me, that I don't have a clear understanding of. And like I said, I'd be more than happy to come in personally and do a deeper study. I don't know if this is the right setting, but that information, at least for me.
We have that information in Aries, and we can certainly, we do need to do something like that.
So do you have that now, that you can go through the 32, or, you know, or even last year's, whatever change that was, and you know, based on what we have either in a computer somewhere or in your head, because you know the families. Can you come back at the next board meeting and tell us here
are the reasons why? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do a tally. These are the reasons. A number of students left because they moved out the area. A number of students went to their home district. A number of students was because of programming. So it's based on, we can.
Yeah.
So that would,
Short answer is yes.
I'm repeating my, I agree, if we can get that.
Anna-Cree, is that documented somewhere other than that steel trap of yours?
The withdrawal forms. Okay. So if you came in to help us, then what we can do is we can give you like the withdrawal forms, and you can read the reasons why.
Yeah,
and a lot of the parents will place that on there.
We can talk offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one other point that I think needs to be highlighted, which is no doubt news or anything, but 50% of our
IDTs
is all inter-district transfers.
They're saving us.
So, and they really, literally,
I know, they have been.
literally continue to.
IDT.
So I think, you know, that's important information. This report is very useful in terms of highlighting that ratio, if you will.
Yeah, last year I think it was just a little less than 50%, like 49 or 48%.
And, you know, I'll say this, you know, to piggyback on Member Simon, and I can understand his concerns. I mean, with the elementary, especially with the elementary, I mean, we just had this large dip in 11-12. And then we came up, then we had a large dip in 13, 14. But from actually 06 all the way up to 10, 11, I mean, we were steady. Now, the high school has kind of always been a little issue, but from the elementary standpoint, we've always been strong, with those numbers. And, and he's right, the concern, if we keep dropping in ADA, then that's going to decrease our funding. I mean, if it wasn't for the IDTs, and if it wasn't for our business community, we wouldn't be sitting here at this table right now, bottom line. So we have to pay strong attention to attendance. I mean,
you wouldn't have been sitting here 10 years ago. So
it don't make a difference.
So
I'm talking about today.
But what you have to understand though is that when you have that dependency, then it does indicate or dictate in terms of how you recruit or what your marketing plan is.
Right.
Because when I first started at Annie Yates, I disenrolled the whole school because everyone was I found cleaner addresses.
Yeah.
There were a lot of caregiver affidavits and they weren't. So I think what we need to do is once you have a study and once you understand why, then you're able to actually make informed decisions. So it's not a blanket statement on what we think,
Right.
but we know we have the percentages.
But I think, hold on, just a minute, Ms. Kent, I'm sorry. And I understand that history. Ash, I'm sorry. I understand that history, but we've come so far in over the years, and we have hammered this topic, for years to try to solidify it and keep it sustainable. And this year, a 57 student drop, that's a lot. Based on all the work we put in over the years.
I'll tell you why.
And that's all I'm saying.
I just, again, to kind of cheerlead what I was saying as far as a study is concerned.
Okay. Well,
You might do a study. You might do a study and find out that 90% of the people who leave because they move out of the area.
Okay.
Right now, we don't know that.
Right.
So if we do a study and we say, okay, look, every year we lose 75% of kids, or the 75% of the kids that we lose move out of the area, then now we know every year we have to plan on that.
Right.
And every year we need to be reaching out to fill that 75%.
Or, as Member Simon says, we need to make a better affordable housing in our city.
Oh, no, that I
I mean,
agree with.
yeah.
That's
So we have
exactly
to.
right.
So that's why we need the history.
That is
Miss Ash.
I agree with that
exactly
one.
right.
Miss Ash, I'm sorry. That's why we need
Mrs.
this kind
Ash.
of. That's why we need this kind of information.
Yeah.
That's why it's so.
I also will, and also just to be mindful, member, Dwayne, is another reason why we aren't necessarily the sustainable housing is one, but when the housing is so you're dependent on interdistrict transfers. You're right. So therefore, but your strategy has to be different. So a lot of times what we've been able to do is we've been able to hold on to those families and they're loyal.
Right.
I mean, we've had students who will commute from far and beyond to be at our schools, but at a certain point, we know that 10 of them can leave at any moment because the commute is just too much for them.
Right.
So I think it is imperative that we look at the information, analyze the information, and then anticipate our plan has to also include
Right.
Families that are within our area or if their parents live in the area, and then always have a plan to continue to recruit.
Yeah. I mean, because this is how we went bankrupt the first time.
The other thing that
No, it's okay.
Ms. Ash might want to look at when she's doing the study is what percentage of those who are leaving are Emeryville residents, and what percentage of the inter-district transfers are actually residents who've just moved across the street. Because part of it is rents in Emeryville are skyrocketing, and to the degree that, parents who are Emeryville residents have just moved across the street, it would be good to know. Because I think the IDT percentage is a bit misleading. When we've analyzed it in the past, something like 80 to 90% of our kids
Across the street.
are either across the street or they're
In walking distance.
the kids of Emeryville, people who work in Emeryville. They're
Right.
district transfers because,
Exactly.
Emeryville has more people working here than downtown Oakland. So I
30,000 employees.
think in the past, we've had the capacity to do a much more robust analysis, and, which is not that, I mean, we've cut administrative staff, so I don't know that we have the staff. So I deeply appreciate your expertise, Member Ash, and your willingness to really help dive in, and I'd suggest we could pull out some of the past analysis that's been done, so you can just see some of the things that have been,
Breakouts, yeah.
see some of the ways that we looked at it back when we had more administrative staff. So, but I do think this it is not a small thing. And it is important to look carefully and to specifically, and I'll say it again, I think if there are things that we need to implement before the end of the school year, so that the parents who are here now see more things happening, and it's not just a guessing game as to what's going to happen next year.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I don't know from an HR standpoint if there's ways that we can be able to announce, who teachers are going to be the following year. I mean, I think it's just a matter of figuring out what we can do and what we can't do to try and capture them back. I apologize, one, for speaking at such length, and two, because I have to leave. I regret I have to plane to catch in the morning, and I still have to pack. So I regret I'll miss the rest of the meeting, but I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Any other comments related to the enrollment report? Anything else? Any public comments? All right. So.